Welcome to the Girls Empowerment Network podcast. We are changing the world.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Mobley,
I'm Julie,
and we are the hosts of Girls Empowerment Network podcast.
and today we're here with.
Ashley Thomas.
Hi, Ashley. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Sure. So I am a native of South Carolina. I'm from a little small rural area called Sandy Run, which most people don't know about, but it's going towards Orangeburg. And I'm the founder and executive director of an organization called the Hive Community Circle that's located here in Columbia.
Why did you decide to name your company the Hive?
The organization, yeah. So the Hive, we work with survivors, so young people as well as adult women who have experienced sexual abuse or been exposed to it, as well as those that may have been in an unhealthy relationship or unhealthy marriage, or have experienced stalking. So the name, the Hive, really comes from being able to provide a place of security, a haven of support for survivors, and a place as well where, as survivors, we're all working together to continue to create safer communities and safer spaces for us all.
Okay, so what made you want to work with the Hive or the organization?
So I started the organization. In 2014, and I started out of my own experience. So I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I also worked as I'm a social worker as well. And so in my role as a social worker, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of, unfortunately, that had experienced sexual abuse. And one of the things that I continued to see was that it was girls that looked like me and you, girls that looked like the girls in this room. They were black and brown girls. And so the Hive was created really to address the need for services that were being created for us and by us, because unfortunately black and brown women and girls experience sexual assault and unhealthy relationships, or some people may say domestic violence. They experience it at a higher rate. And so it's not just about having an organization that provides those services, but really being able to create services in a way that speak to the way in which we heal, the way in which we need the support and all the resources that we need in order to really thrive.
What, in your opinion, is the most important thing about your job?
The most important thing about my role, like outside of me being the executive director and doing my work there so that the organization can grow and sustain, I would say the most important thing for me to do is to remain non-judgmental. And so that means that when a survivor comes to us, I don't approach them from a place of judgment. No one that's on our team approaches them from a place of judgment, but really meeting them where they are, because we all have, different background, different experiences. We don't know a person's life based off of looking at them, right? So when I sat down, y'all complimented me on my shoes or my dress, but you had no idea the things that I would say when you ask me these questions. And so it's really about meeting people where they are and treating them as a human being, not based on their status or even why they're there at your office, but just, meeting them where they are. So I would say that's the most important thing for me.
So since you work with a lot of teen girls and women and stuff like that with abuse and stuff like that, what advice do you give to teen girls and stuff like that when they're dealing with abuse or sexual assault?
I think when it comes to sexual assault, it's important that you tell someone, that you consider to be a safe adult. And that's important to understand the difference between it being an adult versus a safe adult, because just because someone is an adult doesn't mean they're safe, right? And so really making sure that this is someone that if I disclose this information to them, they're going to make sure that I'm removed from this type of situation and that this individual is held accountable. Not I tell this person and they blame me for what's going on and they don't get me the help and the support that I need, right? Or this person continues to do what they're doing. So I think that that's really important when it comes to sexual abuse. And when it comes to unhealthy relationships, again, it's important to be able to identify someone in your life that, whether it's a parent, a guidance counselor, a teacher, a mentor, someone that you're able to disclose what you're going through. And even if you don't know, how do I identify if I'm in an unhealthy relationship or if this person is toxic? Like, even if you don't know what that might look like, but the fact that you question that, you should tell someone. You should ask them, hey, this is what's going on in my relationship. Is this normal? Is this okay? Should I be experiencing this? Should they be doing this? Because you may not know. And oftentimes we don't know. Because for us, what one may consider to be toxic could be normal. Or if no one ever had that conversation with us, we don't know how to identify what's healthy versus unhealthy. So
What are some of the big red flags when you're in or starting to get into a toxic relationship or abusive relationship?
yeah, so I would say some red flags as it relates to young people that you would want to, or anyone that you would want to be mindful of, would be control, would be one. And so we oftentimes can think like, oh, it's cute if somebody, wants to know where I'm going or who I'm talking to, or, what am I wearing today, or whatever the case may be, right? However, when that becomes a consistent thing for them to, and they try to enforce control around that, so control around your phone or control around who you're interacting with on social media or control of who you're hanging out with, that's when it's a red flag. I would also say it's a red flag if manipulation. And so if you've identified something to not be okay, but that person says, or if you don't feel okay with doing something, but they try to force you, what we in the field, we use the word coerce. So trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do, but they may say, well, come on, I really like you. I want this to work. So why don't you do this with me? And it doesn't have to be something that is per se illegal. It's just not what you want to do. You said something funny earlier with the mic. You were like, I didn't ask the mic for consent. Well, you said I didn't ask it for consent. And me and Miss Kawan was like, we laughed, but I was like, well, hey, at least she's like thinking about consent, right? Because oftentimes we do things and we don't think about asking, right? Or we don't think about the right for someone to do that. But I would say, the control and the manipulation are red flags. Also, being mindful if someone is like investing a lot of like money or their money in you or their time, because typically no one is going to do that without, especially up front. Not saying that people can't be nice or kind and want to do nice things for you, but if you notice just this like overthrow of like buying you these things, just be mindful of that, to make sure that there are no expectations attached to the gift, because again, sometimes that's a tactic for someone. So I would say definitely paying attention to that, paying attention to like jealousy, but that all again goes down to control. And typically people that are batterers or individuals who are abusive, control is what they need in order to essentially reinforce the abuse. If they don't have the control, if they don't have power and control, then they can't abuse. Power and control must be present in order for them to be able to reinforce that abuse. So in any way where they're wanting to like have a lot of power, have a lot of control, those are the flags that like the things you want to really pay attention to.
So me being a teenager, me being on social media and stuff, obviously there's a lot of posts that go around about my friends wanting certain things in relationships. So how do you feel about teens normalizing toxicity? when somebody's like, oh, I want a toxic relationship, I love toxic relationships, like, what does that mean to you? How does that make you feel?
That really concerns me. If there are teens online saying that they want a toxic relationship or that's what they want to be in, and unfortunately we know that not just social media but media in general influences the way in which like we perceive our world, not what it's not what our reality is, but we perceive it of like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. So if I look at, I feel like people still make music videos, but my era, like BOT 106 in Park, like that was the thing. Watching videos that they feel like was more popular back then. And so, if you saw the toxicity in a relationship, but it wasn't portrayed as a bad thing, then you thought that was okay. So again, it's really about unlearning. And so, if you are on social media and you have a peer that you see is saying like, oh, this is what I want, or I want someone that's gonna, snatch me up by my arm, or, you're mine, say things like you're mine. And people, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, people will make comments like, oh, I want a nice guy, or I want a nice woman, but I want him with the edge, a little edgy. I want him with a little rough on the side. And typically that's somebody that's a little rough is somebody who's don't mind knocking you up. And when I say knock you up, I mean like in a bad way, not in pregnancy way. And so physically, of being abusive. And so, again, I think it goes back to like, if you see something like that, then addressing it to say like, hey, that's not cool, or why do you want to be in a relationship that's like that? But I wouldn't just like keep scrolling on my timeline, and ignore it if again that person is someone that you consider to be a friend.
Do you think that when people grow up in toxic homes, they look for that more in a relationship rather than a person who has grown up in like a safe place where they can get the love and nurture that they need?
I think that if you grow up in a home, so let me say this first. One is that like as human beings, as individuals, we're very resilient. And so, meaning that, we have the ability to overcome situations and circumstances that otherwise could have caused us to not be successful in life. And so, if you are in a home where there's toxicity and it's unhealthy, it absolutely can impact the way one then grows, like what a relationship is supposed to be like and what it's supposed to look like. But it also can do the opposite. Which is like, I know that this is not normal. I know that this isn't okay. And so when I become an adult, or when I have the opportunity to be in a relationship, I'm going to make sure that my relationship doesn't look that way. And so it really just depends on the individual. Does it make it I guess I could say it increases, yes, that individual then engaging in an unhealthy relationship. But does it mean that they're going to, or that they're going to be abusive themselves? No, it doesn't mean that. But it can make it more riskier for them.
Well, thank you, Miss Ashley, for sitting here and just talking to us, answering our questions. Really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Gen Podcast. A special thanks to our sponsors